Hi, welcome to our second practice of this Complete Beginners series. As I mentioned in the first video, this is designed for anyone, pretty much anyone, but if you've never tried yoga before, if you feel like you have had a practice at some point and have lost it for any reason, whether that's life getting in the way, that's injury, maybe illness, anything that sort of kept you quite immobile for a while and you're a little bit nervous or apprehensive to step straight into a full class and you want to just get a little bit of movement, a bit of breath work into your daily or your weekly routine. As always with these classes, I'm going to use or offer the use of some props. You don't need to have proper yoga props. I have a yoga block, but you don't need it to be a yoga block. Just anything that looks a bit like this. Hardback books work pretty well. Something quite sturdy because we tend to lean weight on it. Also, a strap is useful to have nearby. Always, you don't need a yoga strap. You can use a dressing gown cord, a tie, a scarf. Also, it might be useful to have some sort of cushion or rolled up blanket. Just if we're in a position and you can't quite find a relaxed point, you might just stuff that under because we want to move and stretch, but we also want to find a little bit of peace, a little bit of stillness. So we're working on both body and mind. Let's get started. So we are going to start in a child's pose today. So we're working on the ground to begin with. And I know groundwork can often be a big challenge for people, especially if you are new to the practice and haven't spent much time doing any sorts of sitting on the floor. So if we are holding a floor-based pose for a little while and it gets uncomfortable, by all means, you listen to your body, and if you need to back off, if you need to take a break, pause the video, maybe stand up for a moment, please do. So child's pose, big toes are touching. We're going to open our knees nice and wide, so they can either be hip width or you can open them wider if you have that availability in the hip. See how they're feeling today. And then you're going to walk your hands forwards and bring your forehead down towards the floor. Now, some of you might not get all the way down, your forehead might be lifted. You might want to grab your cushion, your block, something to put underneath the forehead. Likewise, your seat bones, your hips might be quite a bit up off the heels. That is also fine. You either want to put a cushion underneath it or just come to a place of stillness that feels, even if it's not completely comfortable, like you can stay here for a little while. We won't be here for too long. We just want to start breathing into the body. So once you set yourself up into this child's pose, let's take a big breath in through the nose. Open the mouth and really just sigh it out. Do that once more. Big breath in through the nose. Just taking these big sighs to really let your body, your mind step out of your day and step into your yoga practice. Take a few more sighs if you want to. Otherwise, starting to breathe in and out of your nose. If for any reason breathing in and out of your nose doesn't work today or doesn't work for you, you can open the mouth. But in yoga, I will often cue in and out through the nose, but don't worry if that isn't working for you today. Start to gently constrict the back of the throat as we did in the first video, moving towards an ujjayi breath. So making that oceanic-like sound at the back of the throat as you breathe in and out through the nose. And don't worry if the sound isn't very loud or isn't very strong. We're working towards it, so don't force it. Just allow a gentle whisper if that's all that's coming out today. Nice and slowly. On an inhale, you're going to lift yourself all the way up onto all fours, tabletop position. So hands come below the shoulders and your knees are hip width apart. So get yourself set up. We want to have a straight spine to begin with. I'm going to take a few rounds of cat and cow. Before we start moving, take a little look at your hands and spread your fingers nice and wide. Press down with each of the fingertips and then each of the knuckle pads, so this sort of fleshy part of the hand. If this is quite uncomfortable on your knees, You can place a cushion underneath the knees or a roll-up blanket just to give you a little bit of extra support. So let's go for our cat and cow. So as you inhale, start to lower the tummy down, lift the tailbone, lift the chest, lift the gaze. Cow pose. And then slowly start to reverse that. So tuck the tailbone around the spine, bring the chin towards the chest. Cat pose. Keep going like this. So inhale, we drop the stomach. Find that cow pose. Lift the tailbone, lift the gaze. As you exhale, rounding the spine, chin coming towards the chest. Inhale, we reverse once more. Cow pose. And exhale to round. We're going to take a few more rounds like this. So just moving with your breath. So adding in that element of vinyasa, of flow. And what we're thinking about as we start moving into that is one breath, one movement. So allow the whole of your exhale to complete as you round the back. And then as you start to inhale, you start to open up. If you've never practiced this sort of movement with breath before, it can often feel a little bit tricky and you might forget which way you're meant to be going as you breathe. But don't worry too much, and don't worry at all if you do get muddled or maybe do the slightly wrong version. It's really not a big deal. Let's take one more round. Nice, and then bringing yourself to stillness with a flat back. We're going to stay up on our knees, but we're going to reach our right arm up towards the ceiling. So open the chest. We're then going to reach our right arm down, so we come all the way down onto our right shoulder and our right cheek. So you can choose if you just stay here exactly how you've come down, or you can reach your left fingertips forwards, totally up to you. And here, you're aiming to have your hips stacked on top of your knees, but if you want to here, you can sink your hips back towards your heels. So if it feels better to come all the way down, so almost a child's pose in the lower body, by all means go for that. Especially if you do have bad knees and they're sort of digging into the floor. I want you to visualize in your mind where you're feeling this stretch. So it will probably be somewhere along the shoulders. Either the outer edge of the shoulder, maybe the shoulder blade, maybe even the side of the rib cage. And once you've got that image in your mind of where you're feeling it, I want you to think about sending your breath to that area of your body. And then let's slowly lift all the way back up into our tabletop position. Take a moment here, reset, let that pose sort of settle into the body. And then let's go on to the other side. So lifting, reaching that left arm up, opening through the chest. And then threading that arm through, coming down onto your left shoulder and your left cheek. I didn't mention this on the other side, but if it's really uncomfortable to get your left head all the way towards the floor, you probably can guess what I'm going to say, but you can always have a cushion underneath the head. Make yourself comfortable here. Again, choose if you keep your right hand next to your face or maybe reach it forwards. If the hips feel good here, stay there, or slide them back so you're in a sort of child's pose in the lower body. Know that there's always plenty of options here to go into poses as much or as little as you want. Know that as I hold them for a few breaths, if it's too much or if it's uncomfortable, you can always back off the poses. Always reminding yourself to come back to your breath. And let's slowly lift all the way back up into our tabletop position. Great work. From here, we're going to come all the way onto our tummy. So transition any way that you want, but just come to lying on your tummy. And we're going to take a Sphinx pose from here. So you're going to place your forearms onto the mat in front of you. You want to have your elbows just below your shoulders. You can choose here if you keep your toes together, your big toes touching, or if you want, if it feels better for you, you can open out the legs. If your pubic bone or your hip bones or anything is digging down into the floor, feel free to put your blanket or cushion underneath. Once you've found a good position, really think about lifting the crown of the head so it's easy to sink into the shoulders here. Think about a string coming out of the crown of the head and someone's pulling up on that string. Just staying for a few breaths, starting to open through the chest, soften through the face. You might even feel this a bit in the shoulders, in the arm muscles. And when we come into, especially poses when we're not looking down, we're looking up or straight ahead, try and find a spot in front of you and just focus your gaze onto that spot. So one of the pillars of our yoga practice is drishti, which is your gaze. And what we mean by talking about our drishti is keeping our eyes focused softly to one spot. So you'll notice now that we're talking about it, you might have the urge to look around the room, but try not to. Even as noise, distractions happen around you, which so often do, especially if you're practicing at home, if you have children or family around, maybe pets around, or even if you just live and you've got a busy street outside. Really try and focus your attention as you focus your gaze to one spot, helping the mind just calm, just soften down. Let's take one more big breath in here. And as you exhale, nice and slowly, nice and gently roll the spine along the mat. Bring the hands, one on top of each other, to the center of the mat and let your forehead rest on the back of the hands. Just taking a few breaths, maybe another sigh if that feels good. From here, we're going to come into our Locust Pose. So reaching the hands alongside the body, palms facing down. Have your big toes touching and bring your forehead onto the mat. Think about tucking the tailbone, so pressing the pelvis into the floor. And then nice and slowly, not rushing it, not sort of forcing it, we're just going to lift up. So lifting as much of your body up off the mat as you can. It doesn't matter if it's just a couple of centimeters, maybe 1 inch, that's absolutely fine. Some of you might find you've got a little bit more space. You're reaching the fingertips back to find an opening through the chest. Make sure you're breathing here. So what we're doing here is we're strengthening our lower back. And I think it was last year, the most common reason people went to see their GP was because of lower back pain. So it's great to get that area of our body strengthened, stretched. Let's take one more breath in. And exhale, release. Bring the opposite cheek down to the mat and just sway the hips from side to side, nice and gently releasing the lower back. It might feel a little bit compressed, especially if you've never taken a movement like this before. We're going to set up for another one of these, but this time we're going to interlace our fingers at our lower back, so at our sacrum. So make a fist with the hands, let them rest on your lower back while we set up. Forehead down, big toes to touch, press the pelvis down. So feel that tuck of the tailbone, and then we lift up. And as I said before, we were resting our hands on our seat. This time, or now that we've lifted, we're going to lift the hands up too. So see if you can reach so far back with your hands that they lift up off the seat bones. Make sure you're not clenching the jaw or frowning here. Just staying for another 3, for 2, for 1. Great work. Slowly, slowly releasing down onto the mat. Other cheek down. Take a couple of breaths. It might feel nice to gently rock the hips from side to side. Release any tension or any compression that might have built up in the lower back. Great work. We're going to lift back up onto all fours. So nice and slowly lifting yourself up, tabletop. We're going to take one downward dog today. So we're going to take it nice and slowly. Walk your hands slightly forward so they're ahead of your shoulders. You're going to tuck your toes under and then lift your hips up. So it's that inverted V shape we're looking for. Feel free here to keep a big bend in the knees. Again, think about the fingers, spread them wide. Spread the toes wide if you can. And we're just going to hold it here, pressing the hands down and forwards, lifting the tailbone high. Breathing for 5, for 4, for 3, 2, 1. Great work. Dropping onto your knees and coming back into that child's pose position. So sinking the hips back, forehead comes down to the floor, maybe to a cushion, a blanket, a block. Let the hands reach forwards and just take a few deep breaths. So really looking back inward, especially if that was really challenging, really uncomfortable in the body. Moving from that place of strength to softness. And that is so important in our yoga practice. That we're looking for tension, we're searching for ways to find tension in our bodies and stretch it out, but we are also looking for elements of softness, understanding what our body needs. Let's lift up, and this time we're going to come all the way around to a seated position. So swinging the legs round, you can go along your mat. I'm just coming this way to face you. Legs are straight out in front of you. If your hips, your hamstrings are super tight, you might want to sit on a block or a cushion, something just to lift the hips up so you're not completely flat to the floor. It just slightly tilts the pelvis, makes it a little bit easier. From here, place your hands on your thighs or the floor, wherever is comfortable, and flex the toes back towards you. Maybe flex the toes so far back towards you that the bottom of your heels just start lifting. If you want to here, you can close down the eyes. And think about a line of energy along the spine. So it's really easy here to start rounding the back and sinking into it. Really think about reaching the crown of the head up nice and tall. It can be amazing how challenging just sitting upright like this for a minute or so can feel in the body. As I said, especially if you are not used to any sort of floor work. Just focusing on each inhalation and each exhalation. I'm going to give you an option for the final 30 seconds here. So we're doing a minute. The final 30 seconds, please stay exactly where you are if you're feeling it. If this is a challenge, great. You found a perfect spot. If you want more, just start to walk your hands down your legs. So you might walk them just towards your knees, your shins, ankles, or your toes. Don't force anything here, but if you are leaning forward, you're reaching the chest forwards. And then again, come back to your breath. And if you are falling forwards, nice and slowly walk your hands back up your legs. If your eyes are closed, open them back up. And we're just going to release this one. So it might feel nice here to just lean backwards into the hands and shake out the legs a little bit. Great work. We're going to make our way onto our backs from here. So removing any cushions or anything you might have been using, and make your way to lying on your back. And bring your feet flat to the floor, so hip width apart, feet are flat. Right ankle comes over left thigh. We're setting up for thread the needle. So options to just stay like this. If you've got a stretch, if you found that tension, stay where you are. If you want more, grab the underneath of your left thigh. If you can't quite reach your fingers around your thigh, just grabbing your strap and using your strap to sort of find that length that you might not have with the arms. So we want to keep the head and shoulders relaxed on the floor here. And as you pull your left knee in towards you, you think about guiding your right knee back without actually touching it or pressing it. So here we're looking for tension or for a stretch in the right glute, the right hip. Great work. We're going to release this side, so letting go of the strap if you have hold of the strap. Place both feet flat on the floor. We're going to set up for the left side. So left ankle comes over right thigh. Choose, if you feel a stretch, stay here. There's no need to go any further. If you can't feel anything and would like more, either grabbing the underneath of that right thigh, if you can reach and interlace your fingers without lifting the head and chest, go for that. Otherwise, using your strap to pull that right thigh, that right knee in towards you. Always trying your hardest to keep your feet flexed here. Let's release, gently letting go of the strap if you had hold of the strap. And releasing both feet down. Bring the soles of the feet together to touch and let the knees fall open. So coming into that Supta Baddha Konasana pose. If this is really uncomfortable, bolster up underneath your thighs or your knees. And let's bring one hand onto the heart and one hand onto the stomach. Taking a few full body breaths. So noticing if you are still breathing deeply into your diaphragm. So we spend most of our time breathing just in our chest. And yet there are so many benefits of taking a full body breath. And a surprising one might be that it's really helpful for your digestion, because by breathing with your diaphragm, breathing with your stomach, you massage everything inside the stomach. Nice and gently bring your knees together to touch and hug them in towards your chest. Give yourself a nice big squeeze from here. So it doesn't matter if your tailbone to the bottom of the spine lifts up off the mat, but you're really pulling the knees in towards you. Maybe a little rock side to side, massaging the lower back. And we're going to finish up today with a banana pose. So banana pose, if you imagine the shape of a banana, we're going to try and make that shape with our body. So start by lying flat out on the mat, legs up stretch, so stretch yourself as long as you can go. And then keeping your hips exactly where they are, walk both feet towards the right. So you might find that your feet come off the mat, that is perfect. Right, and then with the arms, you can also reach your arms, you can shift the shoulders over towards the right. So you're really trying to find a curve along the left seam, the left side of the body. From here, you might want to place one ankle on top of the other. For some people, it's going to feel good to place the left ankle on top of the right. For others of you, it will feel good to go right on top of the left. So maybe try out both. And then you can hold the hands. If this feels really tight on the shoulders and your shoulders are lifting, feel free to bend the elbows as much as you need to. So just finding any position with the arms, with the legs, that allows a stretch along the left seam of the body. So we're really stretching into probably areas that you don't often get to stretch. And one of the wonderful things about this ground work yoga, so we've done pretty much everything on the floor today, we haven't stood up, is that it's really grounding for the body. We often spend all our time seated on chairs, on sofas, and actually there is a beauty in just sitting on the floor or spending time on the floor. Check in with the breath here. It might feel a little bit different, but you might be able to open up more space along this left lung, the left rib cage. And then nice and slowly, we're going to come back through center. Just pause for about 2 breaths straight out on your mat. Notice what's going on. Notice how you're feeling. And then let's do it the other way. So walking both feet towards the left. They might leave the mat. That's absolutely perfect. Walking both arms, the shoulders slightly towards the left too. Again, you might grab opposite hand or opposite elbow. You might have bent elbows or straight arms. Maybe one ankle over the other. There's loads of options here, so play around with it and don't feel like you have to do exactly what I say. But one thing that I would recommend, or that is important here, is keeping both hips grounding down. So it's quite easy to start tilting all the way onto your left side and having this right hip lift. But really try and keep both hips grounding down. And in these longer held poses, you can choose what you do with your gaze. So we've spoken about drishti. You can keep a soft gaze, or you can close the eyes if that helps you. Sometimes I find closing my eyes means my mind starts speaking up and getting a little bit more noisy. So totally up to you what you prefer, what works best for you. And then let's release this side, coming back to center. So lying flat out on your back, arms alongside your body. We're going to set up for our final rest. If you do have your cushion and you want to grab your cushion, because we've worked our hamstrings quite a bit, you might want to put your cushion folded up if you have a cushion like mine and place it underneath your knees. This is a lovely thing to do in any sort of Shavasana that we come into. If you don't have a cushion, don't worry, you could use a rolled up blanket. You don't need to do this, but this is great if when you come up to lying on your back, you get any sensations in your lower back. And then let's relax into this final rest. So always closing our practice with a little bit of stillness. Let go of the full body breath or that ujjayi breath that you were using. And just allow your body to breathe itself. Maybe run awareness over the physical body, just noting what's going on, what are you feeling. Maybe you're not feeling anything right now, and that's fine too. And whatever thoughts, whatever sensations are coming to your mind, just let go of them now. Allow your mind to be as clear as possible as we spend a few moments here in our Shavasana. Gently start to deepen the breath. And as you do this, bring some movement to your fingers and your toes. Reach your arms up overhead, taking a full body stretch. And then any way you want, you can either roll onto your side or lift yourself straight up into a seated or kneeling, any position that is on the floor. You can have your legs straight out. So we're going to bring our hands together at heart center and have your eyes closed. Just enjoying the sensation of stillness, of peace in the body. And maybe seeing if you can take some of this stillness into whatever you have in store for the rest of your day. Lift your thumb knuckles up to your forehead center. And together we bow forwards and say, Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me for this practice. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, let me know any questions below the video, any requests. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed it. If that was your first, if that was your second yoga class, congratulations. Yeah, have a wonderful day. See you soon.